Hi, I'm Jo Bailey and welcome to my channel where I talk about all things brain. This video is part of my psychiatric profile playlist where I, as a forensic trained clinical psychologist, look at some interesting people, criminals, politicians and celebrities and try to make sense of some of their crazy behaviours and crimes. This video is part 4 of my series 5 Things That Make No Sense About the Chris Watts case. And today I'm talking about Cindy Watts, Chris's mother. And I'm going to try and make sense of some of her unrelenting love and support of Chris, something many of us can't understand. If you don't know the Chris Watts backstory, I won't be speaking to any of it here, so I'll put a link to a half-hour video that I created earlier whereby you can go and have a look, check out the backstory, see what happened. But if you've clicked on this video, I'm guessing that you're probably already familiar with the case and here to learn a little bit more about the mother in the story. I would love to speak to Cindy in real life and really try and get a true and accurate gauge on what she has been going through. You know, I think Cindy has been her own worst enemy through all of this. She even publicly said that she can't understand why so many people hate her. Well, the answer to that is pretty simple though. People see her as defending her killer son and berating and blaming the victim. They see her declaring her unwavering love and support for her son much more loudly than her loss or grief of her 3 grandbabies. I have no doubt at all that Cindy is a broken, confused and deeply wounded woman. If I could choose one person in this entire case to speak with, it would absolutely, without a doubt, be Cindy. But to be fair, I have not met her before. I have very limited information to draw my conclusion from. And what you're going to hear from these videos today is just my opinion. My opinion is not fact, it's not a diagnosis, it's just a speculation on what I think could be happening based on the available information and my experience as a forensic trained clinical psych. So today I want to address 2 things. Number 1 is the primary public criticism of Cindy and why she's defending Chris to the apparent occlusion of all else. And number 2 is the public diagnosis of her that she is a narcissistic mother, an individual who is self-serving in her support of her son. And let's see if we can make any sense of this. Because there's not a lot of collateral or direct material, video interviews of Cindy, I'm largely relying on third-party accounts. Her public interview that is now old, well, she did 2 interviews, but I'm primarily relying on the first one, and it was done just after the murders. Her impact statement at court, her documented police testimony, and the leaked chapters of her proposed book called All My Broken Pieces, which is not authenticated. It's not published, so I don't know how much weight to put on that one. So before we get into this, let me ask you a difficult and hypothetical question, and I want you to take a moment to really think and ponder through this. What do you think you would do if you were in Cindy's position? Now, this is perhaps directed more to the parents, especially the mothers watching this video. But what would you do if you learned your son, whom you love and who you never had a problem with in your entire life, whom you cherished, who you thought you knew, pleaded guilty to the murder of his family? It's a big hypothetical, I know, but if you answered with anything other than I don't know, then you've started this video with a bias, with a judgment, with a potentially skewed opinion of Cindy Watts. Of course, you can't know. Most of us can't even begin to imagine what it would be like. And fortunately, the largest percentage of us will never have to know. So I need you to put your prejudice aside and bear with me. Cindy is in a situation that is arguably immensely overwhelming, emotionally charged, like nothing else you could possibly imagine to experience in an entire lifetime. A situation that is horrific, confronting, deeply personal, inexplicable, painful, and something we can't even begin to imagine in our deepest, darkest nightmares. Now, I'm a mother, and I love my children greatly, probably to the same degree as any typical mother loves their child. Would I stand by my son if he did something of this magnitude? It hurts my head to begin to know what I might do and how I would think and what I might say, how I would feel. I don't know. What I do know is that I would be in extreme conflict. I would be in shock, I would be in dismay, maybe in denial for a little while. Remember, denial protects us in times of overwhelming and incomprehensible experiences. But would I still love my son? Would I still want to protect him? I have no clue. Those emotions of shock and conflict and dismay and confusion and denial are all very normal and all experienced by Cindy Watts very clearly. Now, the interview we'll look at in a moment happened soon after the murders, and Cindy has been relatively quiet since. In this video, what I see is a woman struggling to come to terms with what's happened, and someone who desperately wants the truth about what has occurred, but also someone too afraid to hear it. Someone who's not very good at hiding her dislike of the victim, being Shanann, and someone struggling with their own conscience throughout all of this. Let's take a brief look at some important parts of that interview that back up what I've just alleged, and I'll talk through the video as we go to a couple of key points that I think are worth mentioning, and then we'll try and put this all together.
I wake up every morning just crying, thinking this is not going to be what's going to happen every single day. It's just so hard to get through it. I just don't know how to get through it.
Tell me about his childhood. Did he play sports? Was he in scouts? What kinds of things did
Yes,
did
he
do?
played sports. He played sports from the time he was 5 years old up until he was 17. Loved sports. Loved sports. And he was a good kid. There's nothing that would have predicted any of this could have ever happened.
Yeah.
Nothing in his childhood at all. I would have never in a million years thought something like this could happen to him.
What you're seeing here is Cindy distancing. She's putting space between the event and the Chris that she has known all her life. She's also showing a lack of responsibility in this. Her exaggerated head movements, no, nothing at all, nothing ever, not in a million years, is not really typical of what we'd expect to see in these situations. Usually someone is going to be searching for reasons. It's really common after a tragedy to be exploring the what ifs. What if this happened? What if I did that? What if I did that differently? And we don't see that from Cindy, which is a lack of responsibility. And I'm not suggesting she's responsible. I'm just talking to what is typical behaviour. We also see her not making Chris the active agent, giving him distance from the crime as well. By saying she couldn't predict any of this, that's very non-emotive. This happens to be her son killing his entire family. So her choice of words that are non-emotive is another way of distancing and downplaying her son's actions in the crime.
He was doing well.
Her goal here is to imply he was doing well until he met Shanann.
When and where did he meet Shanann?
They met and he liked her, she liked him, but
when someone asks a direct closed question, it usually requires a direct and simple answer. You will see as soon as the question about how Chris met Shanann is asked, Cindy's face turns to visible disgust, a primary emotion, which is one we all feel and can't usually hide. Her answer then goes on to talk about her own experiences, where she sets her own agenda to the question, which is self-serving in her response. The question isn't answered directly, and when it is answered, Cindy's body language here is leaking disgust at the thought of Chris being with Shanann.
I didn't like this isn't the kind of person I would date. He doesn't know how to do this, or he doesn't know how to do that. He looks like a skater boy. Look at his hair. Look how much stuff he puts on his hair. It was just on and on and on, and I just got a bad feeling.
Cindy's taken the opportunity here to disrespect Shanann. Her daughter-in-law has just lost her life alongside her children. It's an inappropriate kind of comment to be making under the circumstances. Cindy is then asked why she didn't attend Chris and Shanann's wedding.
We didn't attend because Shanann and I just couldn't get along. And I didn't like the way she treated him. Christopher always seemed anxious, and he when she needed something, I mean, he would run. He wouldn't walk, he would run, he would get it. He just always seemed to be right there at her beck and call.
Tell me about Bella and Celeste.
Oh, Bella was just like Chris, just like him, shy.
While Cindy relaxes and talks positively about her grandchildren, notice how she still manages to bring Chris into this in a positive light. Bella was just like him.
So they were wonderful. It breaks my heart to know that they're not here. They were beautiful children, beautiful children.
Do you think Chris loves Shanann?
Oh God, he loved her. Yes, I believe he loved her at first. I believe he did. But I think as the years went on, I think it just being in that kind of a relationship, which the social worker even said.
The social worker even said that's Cindy's way of self-validating, of bringing an independent third party into the situation to validate Cindy's position and opinion of the marriage.
That marriage should have ended a long time ago. They are not compatible anymore, and he was not happy anymore. And I finally thought, he's finally seen the light. Ronnie called me and said that they're missing, and I thought, I don't believe it. I didn't believe they were missing. I believed that she was going to punish Chris. She was just going to punish him, take the girls, and just punish him. I had no idea of anything else.
What did his attorneys tell you about contact with him, starting with his
None.
arrest?
No contact. Everything is recorded. No contact. No letter writing. I didn't see the harm in the letters. Hi son, love you, keep fighting. We are here to support you. What is wrong with that? What can the DA do about letters like this? Why couldn't we just write him a letter?
Cindy feels moral disgust, contempt here towards those who prevented her from contacting her son.
That he wanted to speak to us about it. And when we got down there, it was a lie. They wouldn't let us talk to him about anything. And then we had to talk to him through a screen and a phone. And he just looked, he was crying. I mean, he wasn't crying. You could see the movement in his mouth that when I talked about Bella and I talked about Cece and the memorial service that we had for them. And he asked what pictures did we use, and what was the song. You can see how he was trying to hold back tears. And it would have helped us so much to be able to talk to him. I wouldn't have to go through all this now. I just don't like the way it was handled from the very beginning. I don't like the way it was handled. I want to save your life, that's all. We're just here, we're going to save his life. We want him to get life in prison. It was like they already knew he was guilty.
Cindy here is confused. It's like they already thought he was guilty. They knew he was guilty.
All I want is the truth. I just want the truth. That's it.
In this part, Cindy is conflicted. She says she wants the truth. All she wants is the truth. At the same time, she is shaking her head no. And I think that's because deep down, Cindy knows the truth is not palatable. She wants the truth, and yet she can't face the truth. So this causes the emotion of confliction.
All I want is the truth. I just want the truth. That's it. All I want is the truth. I just want the truth. That's it. I just fell to the floor. I just fell to the floor. It was unbelievable. And it's been unbelievable ever since. And
So what we can conclude from watching that video is that at the time, and it was only at that time, Cindy was in shock. She, like her husband Ronnie, is going to struggle accepting the truth right from the outset because she already had a pre-existing opinion. And when we do that, we make the evidence fit our belief. We make it fit our theory. Remember, at the start of this video, I asked you to watch it with an open mind, to be objective and to remove your prejudice. Otherwise, you will see and you will hear what you want to see and want to hear. And that is exactly what Cindy Watts did, and from what I can tell, is still doing. She already disliked Shanann. She already formed a belief that Shanann was the worst thing to ever happen to Chris. And she had already decided that she wanted to have more control of Chris's life than what she had. And she, through her religious ideologies and convictions, determined that every sin is forgivable, including familicide. And this is why she's struggling with her conscience. Her head and her heart and her values are all severely conflicted, and she can't make sense of it herself. Who possibly could? Cindy has tried to fit the evidence into a pre-existing belief system, and that is why, even shortly after the brutal murder of a woman that she disliked, that woman being the mother of her grandbabies, she still vilifies Shanann and promotes Chris. And she does this even more overtly in the leaked book that I mentioned earlier. Now, this book is freely available on the internet if you want to go and find it. It was apparently in a draft form, and I cannot guarantee the authenticity of it, but if it is the work of Cindy Watts, then her earlier point of view has not changed. If anything, her point of view has only strengthened. The leaked chapters of this book are very interesting and very revealing. Even the title, All My Broken Pieces, suggests she's still at the center of her confusion and her denial. And I guess I could spend a whole chunk of time just dissecting the content of this book alone. But the bottom line, if it's genuine and real, it's nothing more than a further and considered, so not an impulsive or confused or shocked vilification, but a constructed and considered vilification of Shanann. And it's hard to stomach. Sure, it's done in a less obtuse manner than just saying Shanann is the one to blame for Chris's actions, but that's essentially what she's saying in the content of this book in an ulterior and very crafted form. Cindy also idolizes her daughter Jamie in this book, putting Jamie on some kind of pedestal and describing Chris as the shy one, impressionable and good, until Shanann came along. Cindy also paints herself as a victim of Chris and Shanann's troubled marriage, which to some degree I guess she was, but a troubled marriage and the decision to murder your family are two very separate things. And Cindy refuses to accept that Chris is the only one to blame for his actions. Perhaps there is shared fault in the marriage problems, and there always is, but Chris is the only one to blame for choosing murder as the solution to their problems. While Shanann was off reading self-help books about troubled relationships, Chris was at home plotting her and his children's murder. And Cindy refuses to see and accept that. And that's why my sympathy for all she has gone through pretty much stops there. She has endured the unimaginable, and she is a broken woman as a result of that. She endured something so gruesome, unexpected, something tragic and horrible and life-changing. I get it. But she refuses to accept in her story that there were only 4 direct victims and 1 perpetrator, her son, Chris Watts. And that's the point Cindy doesn't get, and the reason why so many people don't like her and won't support her. So that brings me to part 2 of my focus in this video, and that's whether it's fair to call Cindy a narcissist. Now again, I don't have a lot of information to draw this conclusion on, so I am kind of speculating, but what I've seen isn't looking good for Cindy. There do appear to be many narcissistic traits here which I can observe, including the dominating relationship she seems to have with her entire family, and the apparent jealousy that is there with Shanann. And I would love to know whether Cindy had problems with any of Chris's girlfriends previously, but I think this was Chris's first relationship or serious relationship with Shanann, so I'm unable to draw any pattern of Cindy's behaviour there. Narcissists usually make every situation about them, and Cindy does seem to put her own needs and her own feelings in front of some of the more important details of the case. She talks a lot about what Shanann did, what Shanann said, what Shanann posted on Facebook, ahead of the minor detail that her son killed his entire family. When Cindy is angry, she uses these really short, sharp tones in her voice. We saw that in the first interview, and we saw it also in the second.
Yeah.
No, 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 no.
What Cindy was angry about then was that she was not in control of the plea deal, and she was upset that she was prevented from being involved. She said it could have been different if she was allowed to talk to Chris about his decision. No, Cindy, it wasn't going to be different. The fact Shanann and her children are dead will not change. Her focus appears skewed from the start, even allowing for those human emotions that we can't begin to imagine. Her body language that I mentioned when we reviewed the video earlier tells me she gets very indignant and very annoyed if she's not in control or doesn't get her own way. Her book reeks of a narcissistic flavour, but I acknowledge it's not verified as her own work, so I'll allow for that. But when Cindy makes up her mind about something, I think it's her way or the highway. Just my thoughts. Remember, when Cindy was saying she wants the truth, she was shaking her head. She wanted a version of the truth, a version that would serve her pre-existing opinion and prejudice. And if that was not possible, then she was going to create her own version. And I believe that's what she's done and why she is able to continue in her ongoing support, control, and narcissistic maternalizing of her son. She has created her own version of the truth, and she now has come to a place where she actually believes it. I want to end with a message, a personalized message from me to Cindy, mother to mother. Cindy, I can't begin to know the pain you've gone through. Words can't express the sorrow that I feel for the loss of your family. But they were your family, Cindy, all of them, not just Chris and Bella and Cece and Nico, but Shanann too. And no one should expect you to stop loving your son. As a mother, I know a mother's love is immutable and it's eternal, and no one can take that away from you. But we just want to know that you understand that Chris was not the victim here. No matter how troubled or unhappy his marriage was, the only victims here are those children and their mother. And we want to know that your love for them was equally immutable and eternal. And to show that you don't have to stop loving your son. You just have to stop excusing him. You chose to forgive him, and that is fine. Forgiveness is not justification. And whilst I wish you peace in life, Cindy, I really do, I think your son Chris took that from you too. But greater than that, I wished a life for those babies, for Shanann, the people that were taken, whose lives were taken at the hands of your son. May they be the ones who rest in peace now.